Hello, my name is Mike Summers, and I am the Wind Instrument Brand Manager at KHS America. These brands include Jupiter Band Instruments, Azumi Flutes, Altus Professional Flutes, and XO Professional Brass Instruments. In this video, I'm going to show you how to clean your saxophone. Before you remove the mouthpiece from your saxophone, you should remove the neck first. You do this by loosening this top screw, usually on the right-hand side. You have two screws up here on some saxophones. One is meant to keep the neck tight for moving back and forth, and the other one is meant to hold a lyre for marching band. So this one won't do anything for the neck at all. So I've loosened the screw, it's a little thumb screw, and I'm going to twist it off. I set the saxophone down. I always set the instrument down away from the palm keys so that the palm keys don't bend, because if you lay it down like this, you notice that the palm keys are in contact with the table, this table, causing them to possibly bend. So I laid the saxophone carefully down. Now I'm going to remove my mouthpiece and reed. This cap is intended, obviously, to protect the reed while you're having a short rest, but it's not intended to store it in the case. So I always take my mouthpiece and my reed off before I put it in the case. So loosen the ligature, remove the reed. It's a good time to inspect the reed, since you've been playing it for a little while, to make sure that it doesn't have any cracks or chips or splits in it. And then you dry it off properly before putting it away. And then I remove my mouthpiece, twisting it. And then I put the cap back on it before I put it back in the case. And then next thing I want to do is kind of wipe it down so that I can get any residual oils off of the instrument that may cause lacquer issues or plating issues or just general tarnishing. This tenon here that goes into your saxophone receiver needs to stay clean, and it does tend to be more susceptible to corrosion because this is raw brass, whereas this is lacquered brass. There's nothing here to protect it other than you keeping it clean. So I make sure that that's cleaned off really well, and I clean out the receiver. And using a swab, this is a saxophone swab, and it has a weight on the end and a swab on the other side so that it goes through the neck. And you want to remember never to force it or pull really hard, because if it's stuck, then it's probably stuck on something and needs to be removed professionally. And I usually only go through the one side because it's too hard to get it to go through this side. And if you try to get it to go through that side, it might get stuck. Now you notice if you look inside your neck, there's a little pip. You probably can't see it, but it's on the other side of this octave key hole. And that could cause some problems if you're running your swab through. Sometimes it gets stuck on that, and sometimes if you just pull it back slightly, back and forth, if it gets stuck, you can just kind of sort of go this way and just restart it, and it gets past that notch. So remember, if it gets stuck, don't force it. You can cause a lot of damage. So that's ready to go. Also add that you can take the time to inspect your cork to make sure that there's no cracks in it, and that it stays nice and greased, that it's not too dry. If it is, and you're having difficulty putting your mouthpiece on, you just apply a little bit more cork grease. You can use too much, and you can also use too little. So it's how you know is if you're just having to struggle too much to put your mouthpiece on. It should go on with ease in a twisting motion. So that's ready to go. Again, I'm going to wipe my fingerprints off. And then it's time to swab out the saxophone. So using this same swab, you want to be careful where you place your hands. You don't want to put them on your table keys or your palm keys to hold on to it, because they will bend. So I grab it nice and firmly where there's a strong point. So on the body here and on the posts in the back. And I just drop the swab weight down one side and hope it comes out the other. There we go. And then again, you're going to gently pull it all the way through. You can do this a few times and make sure as much moisture is out of the instrument as possible. And then that's ready to go back. So, it's also a good time to inspect your saxophone for any damages or clicks or clacks. And there's a lot of working mechanisms here, and there's a lot of corks, there's a lot of pads. And so when you have the time, you take the time to inspect your pads to make sure that there's no cracks or splits or any major discoloration. Being mindful that the pads that are going to stay closed the most often are your low C sharp and your G sharp and your E flat key. Those tend to stick more than often because they stay closed in the case. So if there's any moisture left on the pads, then those might cause problems later on. Before I play my saxophone, after I get it out of the case, I make sure that those are working because if they stick when you're supposed to play a G sharp or a D sharp or a low C sharp, and then it's a wrong note. Before you put your instrument back in the case, it's a good time to take a look at anything that could be wrong with it that is making it play less than perfect. So I put the neck back on. One of the most common problems that saxophones have are with the octave key. This octave key sometimes doesn't move the way it's meant to, and just could be out of adjustment slightly. All of the other keys should be moving effortlessly, and keep in mind that there's anything like grunge or if the key is bent that you shouldn't try to fix it yourself. That you should take it to your local music store. And you shouldn't especially try to bend this octave key because you can break it off, and they're pretty expensive to get them fixed. The last thing I do before I put it away is I just wipe my fingerprints off of it. So before we put it back in the case, we put this end cap in, and what this is intended to do is to protect the octave key mechanism. When you put it in the case, if it floats around, then this keeps it from bending. Very important to have. If you lose it, get another one as soon as possible. And I place that back in the case. Okay, so mouthpiece maintenance. It's imperative that you clean your mouthpiece on a regular basis. Keeps the bacteria out of it, and it'll keep you healthier in the long run. So you use warm soapy water. I don't have any warm soapy water, so you can imagine doing this in a little bucket of warm soapy water or underneath a sink or in a wash tub. And you can get a soft bristle mouthpiece brush from any local music store. And what you're going to do is you're going to put warm soapy water, make sure it's submerged, and you're just going to clean out your mouthpiece really well on the inside to make sure that nothing is going to be in there that could cause a problem. And once it's cleaned out, you're ready to put that back in the case after you dry it, of course. You don't want to put these in the dishwasher. You don't want to drop it in boiling water. You just want to use warm soapy water. Put your mouthpiece cap back on, and that's ready to go back in the case. The reed care, I mentioned earlier that it's important that you inspect your reed often. Without this reed, the saxophone doesn't work. So what you want to make sure is after you've played, or before you play, you can make sure that it doesn't have any cracks or splits or chips in it or anywhere that could be causing problems or mold or mildew. All of these things will cause your reed to not perform well, and you need to throw it away and get a different reed. It's also important that you rotate your reeds. I usually keep 3 in a rotation with my most favorite, my second favorite, third favorite, and I rotate them on a daily basis so that they don't get oversaturated and they just don't get worn out. They should be stored in the little reed case that they come with or another reed case that you can purchase separately. This will keep them dry and they keep them flat, and it will keep them performing perfectly. I hope this video helps, and happy practicing.